right, so I wanted to go over some scoring stuff with you because on this study, looks like you were actually marking a lot of hypopneas where there should be obstructive apneas, and I think this will explain a lot, hopefully. So let's dive right in. In this 5 minute window here, we have this one that you marked here as a hypopnea, and uh, this is correctly marked, actually. So, well done. You have flow still throughout the entire event in the CAN flow, which signals that it is a hypopnea. Okay. This one, however, right in here, um, you do have 12 seconds of obstructive breathing. There's no flow, and there's no breathing actually, but there is still effort. So in this one, you mark an obstructive apnea because you have a flat in the CAN flow, flat in the T flow for this section. Here is where I ended the event because there's still some flow towards the end, and that would be part of the kind of a hypopnea event. But if you have an obstructive apnea in the event, you mark the obstructive apnea. And so that would go for the same here. This would not be a hypopnea, this would be an obstructive apnea. So usually what I like to do first is start in the T flow line, which is in here, and if this is flat, then you move to the CAN flow to confirm that that one is flat as well. And then this is going to be an apnea. Now you look at the belts. Is it obstructive or central? Well, with the belts having all of that movement still, then this would be obstructive. If the belts were flat, then it would be central. So we're going to call this one obstructive apnea right there. And even I think I can pull it out that far. This little blip is still in the 90% range, I think, 90 to 100% reduction in flow, which qualifies that for an apnea. We'll scroll a little bit here, and I think in this event here, you have an obstruction from there to there. These tiny little blips in the CAN flow I don't think count enough for, I think there's still 90% or more reduction in flow compared to baseline. So I would mark that event as an obstructive as well. And we'll move to the next 5 minute window here. I'm actually working backwards, so these are all correctly marked except for this one here. I think this event actually occurs from there to there. You have a recovery breath, or I think this would also be acceptable. Either one of these apneas, or hypopneas, would be acceptable. In the T flow, we have in this event here, I think that is obstructive right there. Even though the entire event is much longer, I think you can mark an obstructive apnea in there, right in there. So I'll mark that, move to the next one. Okay, and then in this event, same here, this would be obstructive. You have a flat line in the T flow, flat line in the CAN flow, flat enough for an obstructive apnea. This one is completely, unarguably an obstructive apnea. This one I'm not entirely sure why you were marking a hypopnea there. It should have definitely been marked as obstructive with flat line in the T flow and flat line in the CAN flow and movement in the belts. So that should have been marked as an obstructive apnea there, and that is exactly what drew me to make a video on these events where stuff like this. where you were marking hypopneas with completely flat lines in the T flow and the CAN flow, like right in here. You have completely flat line from there to there, completely a flat line from there to there, completely a flat line from there to there, complete flat line from there to there, and that's in wake. And then on this event, same thing, complete flat line right there. So those are all obstructives. This is the only hypopnea in this 5-minute window. Um, uh, and I guess the way to explain it is hypopneas have flow, apneas do not. Whether they're central or obstructive apneas or central or obstructive hypopneas, um, hypopneas have flow and apneas do not. So we'll carry on here. Okay, again in this one I think you have enough, well nope, you're right on that one. But you do see the flat line from there to there, which is what drew my eyes to it, but not quite long enough, so that's okay that the hypopnea was marked. It is accurate. So apneas, by AASM guidelines, have a 90% reduction in flow. So it doesn't have to be all the way reduction in flow. And they specify apneas to be marked based on the T flow, which is the thermistor, which is this top line here. So as you're going through, the T flow has to be at least 90% reduced for it to be a apnea. And then hypopneas have to be at least a 30% reduction in flow, which is why I marked that there. That's at least 30% reduction in flow for me, and it has an arousal. So like this, I would mark this as a hypopnea. That's reduction in flow by at least 30%. Okay, and then again, like I said, it doesn't have to be a flat line in the CAN flow, just a 90% reduction in the T flow. So technically you could mark this event as an obstructive apnea based on the T flow being flat throughout that whole section. So see how in the T flow it's all flat? You can mark this by ASM guidelines as an obstructive apnea. Same with this one. This is a 90% reduction in flow. So I would mark both of these as obstructive apneas. Whereas these, you still have flow in the T flow, but ASM marks hypopneas based on the CAN flow being reduced by at least 30%, which you have here on these both. So these are definitely hypopneas, which you have. I looked at your staging on this one as well, and it was very good. So keep up the good work on your staging. It's really improving. Okay, hypopnea there, hypopnea there. All right, hypopnea is there. Good. Good hypopnea is there. And good hypopnea is there. And in this one, I think I would probably just drag it to there and then mark another event there. There's a little bit of a recovery breath in there, so I would just shorten that one. And then with this one, I would mark an obstruction right here based on the T flow being flat. If you can see that, let me delete this again. So yeah, the T flow just drops out completely. That would signal to me that this is obstructive apnea. Remember, you base your obstructions, or you base your apneas. Sorry, you base your apneas off of the T flow line. So if the T flow line is flat, then you can mark an obstructive. And then same here, I'd probably mark an obstructive apnea there. And then definitely this one, I'd mark an obstructive there with the flat T flow. And then I'd probably, let me go back here. I'd probably just mark that as an event there. There's a few recovery breaths in here. And then another event here, but there's no DSAT or arousal, so I can't mark that. So just a little long on that event. And then here is where I would mark an obstructive apnea. Here you don't even have, if you look in the belts, you don't even have effort. So I would mark central apneas here. And then, yeah, I would mark a central apnea here, central apnea here, central apnea here. So see how you have, the first thing you do is look in your T flow. If it's flat, then it's an apnea, right? Then you look to your belts to see if it's obstructive or central apnea. If there's no effort in the belts, then it's a central apnea. So that would make this one a central apnea. It would make this one a central apnea. This one can stay the same as a hypopnea. But this one I would change to a central apnea. This I would change to a central apnea. Now this one does have effort in the belts, enough for me to mark an obstructive. See the effort in the belt there, a little blip there, a little blip there, a little blip there. Um, that can stay as a hypopnea. You still have some flow in the T flow. This I would mark as a central right there. And this one as an obstructive apnea right there. The effort still in the belts. This one, it's probably an obstructive apnea from there to there. You have this little blip in the belts. And then usually you don't mark events crossing through arousals on this one here. So I would just mark this as a central right here. no pulse ox, but you still have a hypopnea there. I would change that to a central. You can't mark hypopneas without arousals or DSATs, which you had an arousal, um, but it was a central apnea, not a hypopnea. And then same for that one there. And that's it. Kind of a short video, but you can see here you have almost every type of event in this. You have central here, obstructive here, and here, and here. Just look at the difference in the breathing between all of these events. Centrals, they don't have any movement in the belts. They also don't have any flow. So they're not breathing and they're not trying to breathe. That's a central event. Apneas, they're not breathing, um, and they're still trying to breathe. Still trying to breathe. Central again, not breathing, not trying to breathe. Hypopneas, still breathing and still trying to breathe. Obstructives, not breathing, still trying to breathe. Centrals, not breathing, not trying to breathe. Um, and then again here, obstructives, not breathing, still trying to breathe. Hypopneas, still breathing, just reduced breathing and trying to breathe. Again, hypopnea is still breathing, still trying to breathe. Centrals, not breathing, and uh, not trying to breathe. So, all right, I'll finish it up there. Hopefully that clears a few things up for you. I hope to, I hope this helped with your events here because that was a little bit rough on this study. So keep an eye out for those things. All right, see you in the next one.